Good day, and welcome to the latest late news edition of Quotes and Pictures of the Week. This is a long distance dedication and special request from Riley, who had better things to do than go to Mr. Breedlove's class this past Friday. So she missed these. So she asked if I would post them on YouTube. So that's what I'm doing. So a lot of this is old. And since I don't, my small face in the corner of the screen doesn't add anything to this production anyway, I figured it's more important for you to actually see the slides. But again, a lot of these stories are now old. The one breaking news from just about an hour ago is the resignation of the University of Missouri president, Tim Wolf. That's the school where I graduated from way back in December of 1996. I graduated. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a proud graduate of Mizzou today. And if you've been following this at all, it seems like the final straw was when the football players went on strike demanding the president to either be forced out or to resign on his own after an increasing number of racist incidents on the campus in Columbia, Missouri. There was an African-American student who was shouted at earlier in the semester with some racial insults. Then a whole group of African-American students who had the N-word screamed at them, and apparently nothing was done by the school administration. And then on a bathroom wall somewhere on campus, somebody drew a swastika with their own human feces, and nothing was done to investigate that earlier. So due to his lack of leadership, there was pressure put on him to resign. Pressure then increased when this past, a couple days ago, football players said they would not take the field again until something was done to change his leadership. And so just today, he stepped down. So we'll have to wait to see what comes next at the University of Missouri. So we start here officially with last week's election. And a couple years ago, or last fall, in the midterm congressional elections, Democrats were handed just a series of defeats. And the same thing happened this past Tuesday, which is a really good night for conservative Republicans and not so good for Democrats at all. And here's some of the highlights of that. In the state of Kentucky, a Republican won the governor's race, and Matt Bevin is now just the second Republican to govern Kentucky, the bluegrass state, in the last 40 years. Democrats also failed to pick up the state Senate in Virginia. All they needed to do was capture just one seat because of the tie-breaking authority of the lieutenant governor, a Democrat, there in Virginia. And the governor of Virginia had devoted a lot of his efforts, he's a Democrat as well, on the campaign trail, trying to make sure that Democrats could get just one seat, but they were unable to do it. Republicans held every single seat in that state. Just a few hours to the south of me, this may be the most disturbing one, a equal rights ordinance in Houston, Texas, which was designed to protect the rights of gay citizens and other groups, was repealed by a margin of 61% to 39%. Supporters said the ordinance was similar to those approved in 200 other cities across the country. It was designed to make sure there could be no bias or discrimination in housing, employment, city contracts, or any sort of business services for 15 protected classes, protected based on race, based on age, based on sexual orientation, based on gender identity. Groups that were opposed to it said that if it were kept on the books, it would make it possible for men claiming to be women to enter women's bathrooms and then sexually attack or harass those women, which is kind of an outrageous accusation to make in regards to this law that was going to be protecting the rights of so many people. But when people like this started showing up with signs like this, no men in women's bathrooms, that image alone was enough to sway voters to repeal that protection in Houston. Sorry, but Ohio rejected marijuana legalization by a 2-1 margin, even with the efforts of Superbud there, who we see in the photograph. That was not enough to get marijuana legalized in the state of Ohio. Here's a tweet from Rory Cooper. Under President Obama, Democrats have lost more than 900 state legislature seats, 12 governor's races, 69 House seats, and 13 Senate seats. That's some legacy. Now, you may ask who Rory Cooper is, and it's a fine question. He is, unsurprisingly, a Republican strategist. He tweets a lot about how bad two different things are at their jobs. Those two things being Democrats and the Detroit Lions. He's originally from Michigan and has not been happy at all with the Detroit Lions' horrendous record this season or last season as well. He's been complaining about that quite a bit. This time next year, we'll know if this upswing in regional conservatism has had any impact on the general election and the presidential election. What we know now is there is a new leader in the race for the Republican nomination for president. For the first time in months, Ben Carson has taken the lead over Donald Trump in a poll of Republican primary voters. Now, I did not watch Saturday Night Live this past weekend. I know that Mr. Trump hosted the reviews that I've read on the New York Times, and some other sites said that it was a pretty painful episode to watch. There have been lots of groups protesting over the decision made by SNL producers and executive producer Lorne Michaels to have Donald Trump host because of all of the outrageous things he had said in the past about immigrants and other groups and women and pretty much you name it. But he hosted nevertheless, and I don't know if you watched it or not, but apparently it was not a particularly good episode. And the man who's now leading the polls in the race for the Republican nomination is no stranger to controversy himself. Here's some of the more outlandish comments made by the retired neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson in the past on why he believes people choose to be gay. A lot of people who go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay. So, did something happen while they were in there? Now, he later apologized for saying that. Now, while watching an Obama speech earlier this year, Dr. Carson said that Obama's appearance was emblematic of, quote, most psychopaths. That's why they're successful, he said. That's the way they look. They all look great. Didn't apologize for that. Comparing women who choose to get abortions to slave owners. Quote, during slavery, a lot of the slave owners thought that they had the right to do whatever they wanted to that slave, anything that they chose to do. And you know, what if the abolitionists had said, I don't believe in slavery, I think it's wrong, but you guys do whatever you want to do. I don't fully understand that one. On why Obamacare is the, quote, worst thing since slavery. Here's a quote from Dr. Carson. You know, Obamacare is really, I think, the worst thing that has happened in this nation since slavery. It is slavery in a way because it is making all of us subservient to the government. Okay? And as I get ready to read this one, I think that Dr. Carson is now the first politician to play the two forbidden cards in politics. If you remember any of the times that I was giving quotes of the week to you in person in years past, we said that the minute that you play the Hitler card, you lose. And Dr. Carson not only plays the Nazi card, he's also played, as we just heard in the last two quotes, the slavery card as well. So here he is on how political correctness was making America like Nazi Germany. Quote, I mean, our society is very much like Nazi Germany. And I know you're not supposed to say Nazi Germany, because that's right, Dr. Carson, you're not, but I don't care about political correctness. You know, you had a government using its tools to intimidate the population. We now live in a society where people are afraid to say what they actually believe. And here's my closer of these controversial quotes on how Dr. Carson believes that the APUSH history curriculum is too negative. I think most people when they finished that course, they'd be ready to go sign up for ISIS. Let that one soak in for a bit. And that is your new leader in the Republican race for the nomination for president. What exactly is it that's enabled him to take the lead over Donald Trump? What makes him so appealing to conservative voters? Here's a video from the New York Times that attempts to explain and demonstrate Dr. Carson's appeal.
I think people are sick of politicians.
Seen enough politics in the White House.
Well, I think that we need somebody that's not been in public office.
That he's not from the political realm.
The reason that there is such an outpour and a surge in support for the non-politicians is because we're all fed up with it.
I love it when people come up to me and they say, but you've never been elected to any public office. You can't possibly know how to do anything. Well, let me tell you something. The Ark was built by amateurs. The Titanic was built by professionals.
Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ben Carson.
One of the reasons that I decided to get into this, against my intense desire to retire, it was because I was afraid that we were starting to lose a part of who we were as Americans, to live by our faith, to live by our beliefs, to speak about what we want to speak about.
I've heard him about 3 times before, and he's a good Christian.
I like his faith. I like that he has clear stances on certain topics, such as homosexuality, abortion.
We must stop listening to the secular progressives who are trying to kick God out of our country. We are a Judeo-Christian foundation.
It's important, as someone who's running for president, to show that you can say things without being, a politician or politically correct, but also be in control and not be offending other people.
Something that Bernie Sanders likes to talk about a lot, and Hillary Clinton likes to talk about a lot. Why do we have this growing income gap? Now, they would have you believe it's because of rich people and how they are doing bad things to poor people. Well, in a sense, they're right, but they're the rich people who are doing it. So that's the problem.
Of course, Donald Trump is interesting, but I knew probably he wouldn't be my flavor.
He's a brilliant, brilliant man, but he also has more common sense than just about anybody I know.
He's also not as brash or as arrogant as I think Trump is.
He's just a guy you can relate to, even though, he's obviously much smarter than I am, but he's personable, I think, and he's got the right ideas about him.
The fact of the matter is, it is a land of dreams. For me, that dream, of course, was to be a doctor. I even like going to the doctor's office. I would gladly sacrifice a shot just so I could smell those alcohol swabs,
That's right. Okay. I'll be free. All right, thanks. God bless.
I'm sorry to hear that. I still don't know what happened. A text message sent from an official with the U.S. military to a Doctors Without Borders representative in Afghanistan as airstrikes hit that hospital last month. The bombing came as U.S. and Afghan military forces fought to take back the city of Kunduz, which had fallen to the Taliban a few days before. 30 medical staff members and patients were killed, some of their bodies burned beyond recognition. You can see in the top photograph especially that building that's kind of in the shape of a T there, June 2015, and then how after the U.S. airstrikes, that part of the hospital has just been leveled. After nearly an hour of bombing on its hospital in the Afghan city of Kunduz, the Doctors Without Borders rep in Kabul received a text message from a U.S. military official in response to the group's pleas to stop the attack, to which that U.S. military official responded by saying, "I'll do my best, praying for you all." The airstrikes remain under investigation by the U.S. military. So that's depressing. It's college application season for all of you high school seniors. Many of you have already sent all of your applications off, had your rec letters written. Here's something depressing for the ladies: the gender earnings gap by higher education. So the blue circle, it demonstrates the gap 6 years after enrollment. And then the darker dot is the gap 10 years after enrollment. It's broken down, so you have the financial measures over here, like how big the gender gap is. That you've got down here on the far left, medical and health science institutions, so med schools, private universities, private colleges, public institutions. So after enrollment, the gap 6 years after enrollment, just a little bit over $10,000 between female pay and male pay for the same profession after going to the UT Health Science Center at Houston. But 10 years after enrollment, men are making nearly $115,000 more than women in the same job with the same degree. So not very uplifting there. Here's something that is uplifting. We've crowned some new champions at the 2015 World Beard and Mustache Championships hosted in Leogang, Austria. It's No Shave November. If you're looking for some inspiration, try these on. It will take you some time to obviously grow this much facial hair and take you some time to figure out exactly how to sculpt it. It takes a lot of hairspray, wax, and whatnot if you're going to get these shapes. It's a nice touch when your facial hair matches your sunglasses. I mean, all credit goes to that guy. And that's a fine waxed mustache and hat, I should say, as well. Wait, did that guy have a mustache earring? I didn't notice that before. I think he does. Impressive. And then there's that guy. Look at that. Just the multi-layers. It's all twisty and turny and curvy. Glorious. Now, we would never know about that without the glorious internet, all the wonders that it gives us. How does information actually travel along the worldwide underwater web? Here's a video that explains how the internet works.
We never stop hearing about how the internet's in the cloud, but really, it's in the ocean. About 300 undersea fiber optic cables are responsible for 99% of international data traffic. It's basically the same way we connect to each other in a single country, except underwater instead of underground. They transmit PewDiePie from Europe to America, and they connect stock traders in New York and London. And these cables, placed by private companies, are the backbone of the internet. But if you held one in your hand, it'd be no bigger than a soda can. There are just a few layers of protection from the water, including petroleum jelly. Yes, your internet is covered in Vaseline. They're vulnerable to earthquakes. At least a few times, confused sharks have bitten them. But many cables are beneath sea life because in some places they go as deep underwater as Mount Everest is high. Ships lower a plow that digs a tiny groove in the ocean floor, lay in the cable, and it's naturally buried by sand thanks to the ocean's current. And that process, it's both stunningly simple and mind-blowingly complex, is responsible for making the internet a truly global network. It's an idea that's audacious and crazy, and you think it has to be cutting edge, and it is. But it's also been going on for 157 years. Electric telegraphs have been around for a long, long time. Experiments in the early 1800s connected two ends of a garden using a clock that revealed letters. Then they moved on to two neighborhoods to help signal trains, and then multiple cities thanks to a network of railroad lines. Underwater submarine cables were an obvious next step, so they played around. Instead of petroleum jelly, the first ones were coated with exotic tree sap to protect them from the water. And though the undersea cables came in spurts, one of the first ones was knocked out of commission by a fishing boat. By 1858, they reached around the Atlantic and across the world. And that's how it's kind of gone since, laying cables that circle the Earth's oceans. The cables are unwound from the back of a ship, sink to the ocean floor, and the world is connected in speeds measured in milliseconds. There are ideas to bring the internet above sea level. Along with cell phone towers, there's internet beamed from Facebook satellites to Africa and balloons lifted by Google. But for speedy international travel, undersea cables are still where companies like Facebook and Google place their bets. That's because the best way to create the cloud is still by going under the sea.
Speaking of the internet, according to a new study from Common Sense Media, both tweens and teens spend an inordinate amount of time on their screens. Do we need a study to confirm that? I don't think so. An average of 4.5 hours for tweens, which if you didn't know, people from 8 to 12 years of age. I have a tween. Obnoxious. And 6.5 hours for teens, 13 to 18 years of age. Now, that's not surprising at all. But the study did reveal some, not just obvious truths, but it served to dispel some myths. Kids and screens. Truth. Some teens spend just too much time on screens. That's not surprising at all. 18% of teens are using more than 10 hours of screen media. Not all consecutive, of course, because that I don't even know how you would possibly do that. But a lot of times they're doubling up. You're on your phone or on something, watching TV, and also chatting with somebody online at the same time. So impressive multitasking. Now, the myth is that all of this screen usage represents the end of reading. The average time spent reading, half an hour. Still one of the survey participants' favorite activities. Reading was the second most popular activity among all tweens and the third most popular among teens, equal with using social media. So that's a good thing. This shouldn't be surprising at all. Boys prefer video games. Girls prefer social media. Girls look around the room. You see what the guys are doing, right? It's part of what's contributing to what many of us call the decline of the American male. Too much time doing Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty or whatever it may be. Killing people, some sort of virtual environment. Or playing all these games. I'm not actually talking to the people around you. Another myth, TV and music have been muscled out. I don't even know why that was a myth. I don't know why people thought that the screen usage was taking people's music and TV watching away. A lot of people are watching television shows on their small screens. They're sort of listening to music on their small screens as well. Truth, though, teens use mobile media all the time. More than half of tweens have tablet devices, and 2/3 of teens have a smartphone and got their heads buried in them. A lot, almost 3 hours a day for tweens, and you can add an hour to that, 4 hours a day for the older age group of teens. Myth, teens have cut the cord. No, of course, people still have televisions. 40% of tweens, 57% of teens have TV sets in their bedrooms. Again, not surprising, our fourth truth, that gamers don't get out as much as other humans. Kids report spending about an hour a day being active. However, if you are a gamer, again, decline of the American male, that average drops to 47 minutes. Fourth myth, the digital revolution is making teens and tweens more creative. No, because you're spending way too much time consuming, just staring at stuff, or listening to stuff, or playing stuff, and not actually making new stuff on your own. So maybe what you're playing or watching or listening to will help you be an innovator and develop something at some point, but it's not, we're not seeing a burst in creativity amongst young people at all right now. Truth, there's a digital divide that follows income differences among families whose income is less. There's than $35,000 a year. Only 54% have a laptop in the home, where 92% of families who make more than $100,000 a year have one. Just over half the low-income teens have smartphones, while 78% of high-income teens do. And our last myth, this means rich kids spend more time on media than poor kids. Now, maybe they have different levels of media. Doesn't mean they're spending more time on it, though. The lower the income or education level of a teen or tween's parents, the more time he or she was likely to spend watching the screen. And while this is not explained explicitly in this particular graphic, if you think about it, if you are in a lower income area, in a lower income family, in an area that has a public school system that is not good, in an area where it is easy for you to skip school, and you often do, what are you going to be spending your otherwise school time doing? Perhaps sitting around watching television. So I think that's the connection there, and that's brought to us by Time magazine. Time to honor some winners. We've already had the winners of the Beard and Mustache Championships. Now it's the latest inductees to the U.S. National Toy Hall of Fame, which is a thing. Maybe you didn't know that. This year's inductees are the Puppet, not necessarily that puppet, just the idea of a puppet, the game Twister, and the Super Soaker. The Strong Museum in Rochester, New York, received 500 nominations for inductees and narrowed it down to 12 finalists. Before settling on those three, 59 toys have been inducted so far since the creation of the National Toy Hall of Fame. You can go on to its website, just search National Toy Hall of Fame, and you can see not only the nominees that were not selected this year, but you can also see all of the toys that already have a place of honor in our National Toy Hall of Fame. Oh yeah, the Royals won the World Series. I'm hoping you get that slide, right? Those are all Royals. Ha! Okay. And there's the cover of Sports Illustrated. Make it rain. How the relentless Royals ran off with the World Series title no one saw coming. And I don't know if any of you took advantage of the day off by the district last week to go down to the parade, in which anywhere from 500,000 to 800,000 people took part. I watched it from afar, and here's some pretty amazing drone aerial footage of what that parade looked like. It's never too early to look ahead to next year's World Series. Actually, it's way too early. Unless, of course, you make your money in setting odds for gambling. So the odds to win the 2016 World Series are as follows. Your Chicago Cubs are the favorites. They, of course, swept by the New York Mets in the National League Championship Series before the Mets were then taken down in 5 games by the Kansas City Royals, who come in as the second favorite to win the next World Series, followed by the team with the most money and the highest payroll in all of baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers. There's your Mets, who the Royals just beat, followed by the cross-state St. Louis Cardinals, Toronto Blue Jays, who the Royals defeated in the American League Championship Series, the Washington Nationals, who now have a new manager in Dusty Baker, the Houston Astros, who the Royals almost lost to, which is kind of easy to forget now when you think about what happened, but the Royals were nearly eliminated by the Astros until an amazing inning in which the Royals came back and took the lead. Otherwise, they would never have lived to face the Blue Jays, much less the Mets, in the World Series. And then we have the Pittsburgh Pirates, even odds there with the Houston Astros. And then my alleged new team, the Texas Rangers, tied there with Houston and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, the Royals could be losing some players, most notably Alex Gordon, Johnny Cueto, Ryan Madsen, Chris Young, and the man that I like to call Zen Brofest, whose name is actually Ben Zobrist. So you probably already heard this. We were waiting for his wife to give birth at some point during the playoffs. She was even flown by private jet along with her doctor to New York in case she went into labor during the World Series. They had their daughter just a few days ago and named her Blaze Royal Zobrist. So I will leave you with the appearance by Salvador Perez and Eric Hosmer on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon last week, in which they got a special guest appearance by two different Brett Saberhagens. If you didn't see it, I think you'll enjoy this. And I hope to record another one of these sometime in the near future. And until the next time, take care.
I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but we discovered something. One of the cool discoveries we made during the World Series. It's an old commercial from 1986 featuring former Royals two-time Cy Young Award-winning pitcher Brett Saberhagen. Have you seen this commercial?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a commercial for Ford trucks. I think it's a local commercial for Kansas City. In it, Brett Saberhagen actually raps. This is real. Check this out.
Folks, I've joined a new team, the Tough Ford Ranger team at my Ford dealer. Cause they got the trucks that are on the ball. From work to play, they've got it all. They've got a base that's a real steal. And here's another very good deal. Or choose a truck named after me, the special edition Ford MVP. So do the Saberhagen Shuffle to your Kansas City Ford dealer today.
You got to do this now. No. You got to call your local Ford dealer and get out and do the Saberhagen. We actually have a surprise for you guys tonight. Here to perform a short congratulatory rap for you for your World Series championship is 1986 Brett Saberhagen. Here he is. There he is.
Well, I want to stop by and say congrats to a well-deserved win to the Kansas City Royals.
Wow, Brett. Good to see you, Brett. 1986 Brett Saberhagen. I can tell you're pretty excited, Brett. Anything?
So excited.
Anything else you want to say to these guys?
Oh, yeah. Well, you guys played to win and you got the job done. Single, double, triple, and a couple home runs. You had a good game plan and with a little bit of luck, now it's over, so come on down and buy a Ford truck.
Oh my God.
Jimmy!
Whoa, wait, hold on a minute. Guys, it's 2015 Brett Saberhagen, everybody.
Sorry to interrupt. Haas, Salvi, congratulations to you and the 2015 Royals for bringing the crown back to Kansas City. Way to go, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. This is great.
And now, there's been 30 years that I've been waiting to do something.
Yeah, what's that? Oh, God, there he is right there. Oh, my gosh. 2015 Brett Saberhagen, everybody. Oh, he's doing the Saberhagen Shuffle. Hey, very nice. We have stand-up from Wayne Federer.